Welcome to the Hockey Writers Prospect Corner, a show with our top prospects writing crew, bringing you the latest news, analysis, scouting reports, mocks, rankings, and much more. From the World Juniors to the NHL draft floor, from the farm to the NHL, our team covers everything that happens in the world of prospects. So sit back, grab a notebook, and get ready for Prospect Corner.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Prospect Corner here at the Hockey Writers. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and as always, joined in by my co-hosts, Dayton Reimer and Peter Baracchini. Guys, we're at the end of the World Juniors. It seemed like it just flew by. We're into 2025 now, and the next step is the draft. That's our next focus, but we're going to wrap up the World Juniors, which just ended this past weekend with the gold medal game, bronze medal game. And of course the semifinals as well, all encompassed in that weekend there. Peter, how's it going?
It's going good. Yeah. It's quite, we just did that whole medal preview thing just last week, and all of a sudden it's already done. So it just seemed like it went by in a flash kind of thing. But yeah, I'm kind of sad the juniors are over because, it's always one of the most exciting times of the year, especially around the holidays. I know it's, time for family and everything, but it's also time for great hockey. And we were definitely given that this year. So can't wait till 2026 right now.
Yeah, it's staying in North America too. It's going to the United States next, and then back to Canada again. So it's gonna be fun to have all the time zones aligned so you can watch them at good times. So, and Dayton, how's it going?
It's good. Yeah. Lots of World Juniors, so I don't know quite what to do with myself after that tournament's ended. But looking forward to reflecting on it and diving in a little bit to what's coming next with all the prospects and stuff.
For sure, yeah, lots of fun. Well, we love the draft, and we'll continue on talking about that next. But let's jump in and talk about the bronze medal game first, which was a pretty crazy game. Went to a 14 round shootout, which we don't normally see that at the World Juniors, especially in a medal game. But it ended up being that way, and Czechia coming away with the bronze medal with Edward Chalet scoring the shootout winner after, I don't know, 5 chances that he had in that shootout, but he ended it. And of course, Kraken prospect. We've talked about a lot of Kraken prospects on the show, and he is definitely one to watch in the future. And he was really good in that game too. So I'll start with you, Dayton, on the bronze medal game. What did you think about it? It's a very tight game, went all the way to the shootout. What did you think about the bronze medal?
Yeah, it was exciting. I think it lived up to the matchup. I don't think uh, a lot of people saw Sweden and Czechia ending up there. Excuse me. I thought Sweden looked really, really good over the tournament, and then they just kind of fell apart in the playoffs. We know that they do that. But no, it was really good to see those two teams fighting for a medal. The shootout was crazy. What did it go? 14 rounds?
Yeah.
That's nuts. I don't know. That to me, that is World Juniors. That is fun. You're seeing two really good teams compete against each other. Both Sweden and Czechia were really, really strong over the tournament. Both really fun teams to watch. And Czechia came away with the bronze medal. And that, I think, yeah, you saw two teams play their best. One came ahead.
Yeah, and it could have gone either way. Had Sweden had a couple chances to win it in the shootout too, and couldn't. The goalies were pretty much center stage for most of it. There was a lot of scoring, and either misses or saves, and ended up being Chalet had a really, his move to win the game was insane. So yeah, it was very exciting and very tight, and we love that, especially in the bronze and gold medal games where they're close games rather than one team just blowing it away. It should be tight games. So we ended up getting that in the bronze medal. Peter, what did you think about the bronze medal game between Czechia and Sweden?
Yeah, fantastic move by Shala at the end. Typical Swedish fashion where, they're supposed to compete for gold, and then always, even in the bronze medal games too, whether it's gold medal or bronze medal, they always find a way to not find that extra gear. and win it in regulation, or get that extra goal to seal off that kind of performance. And yeah, they've won bronze medals in the past, they've won silver medals in the past, but it just seems like in these medal games, they're not at their best, and it kind of showed at certain points. I mean, Axel Sandin Pellick was fantastic. I think he was fantastic in overtime. I thought he had a couple good chances to end it right then and there. I thought Sweden had the more dangerous chances than Czechia, but I'm not one to suggest that. I'm not a big fan of shootouts. I want to get rid of them. I want to abolish them. But that was an exciting shootout. So I basically maybe eat my own words for a second there. But I mean, yeah, I mean, Harabo and Gidloff were fantastic. They were giving their teams a chance to fight every single time. I mean, only 5 goals were basically scored. I think the first 2 were in the second round. Then we didn't get Shala and Stenberg towards the end, and then Stenberg missed, and then Shala ended it. So yeah, I mean, again, not a big fan of shootouts deciding games like that. I want to see more overtime. I want to see more fast pace, but that was an exciting shootout. So yeah, kudos to Czechia. Shala was one of their best players all tournament, and is big reason why you go to your big players in the shootout, and he came up big.
Yeah, he's captain of Czechia too, so that was great for him to end it and win the bronze for them. So, yeah, Sweden had I think a lot more of the chances in the game, but Czechia is one of those teams that they don't need a lot of chances to score. Just they score on their high danger chances that they get, and that's why they win games, and that's how they've won games throughout the World Juniors. And I mean, not like they don't have a lot of talent; they do. I mean, Jakob Stansel was, I believe, one of the top goal scorers in the tournament, and he was really good. And they had a lot of good performances throughout. So, and we'll talk about that in our next segment. So. Let's move on to the gold medal game, which was it looked like Finland was going to end up pulling away and getting that gold medal, but the U.S. just so deep, lots of talent, and they ended up tying the game after being down 3-1, and then went to a shoot. Didn't want to shootout. They went to overtime. It did look like it could have gone to a shootout. It was going a little deep into overtime, but I mean, of course, the gold medal game doesn't have a shootout, so that's what. Okay, one thing before we move, I don't understand why the bronze medal game gets to go to a shootout and the gold medal doesn't. I think all medal games should be you go until you score, and that's how you win it. But
Yeah.
That's as an aside. So gold medal game, there's no shootout, and it was going deep in those overtimes. We almost got into another overtime, but that Teddy Stiga made sure that didn't happen. And this is a guy that didn't play a lot. He's more of a depth guy, and ended up being in overtime and gets a great breakaway off a pass by Zeev Buim, I believe. So I mean that ended up being a really exciting game too. So Peter, what did you think about the gold medal game between U.S. and Finland?
Yeah, for a good 25, 30 minutes, it was looking like Finland was having a stranglehold on the US. It didn't look like the same US team that we saw dominate all tournament. But then fortunate bounce went their way, and then they got momentum, and then they battled back. And of course, Lane Hudson with that cut in like he did against Team Canada, like he's done all tournament, to get to that middle of the ice and unleash that wicked wrist shot to tie the game up, and then kind of do like the whole Superman thing. And I best maybe answer I believe it was Pieniemi that
Yeah.
did the similar Sully as well. So I love that taunting right then and there. I love it when they go back and forth. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of surprised that overtime lasted as long as it did, because USA just hemmed Finland in their zone all the time.
Yeah.
Forechecking heavy, hounding pucks, winning battles, getting those odd man rushes. And it seemed like Finland only had a couple of opportunities, but USA were just hitting pucks wide. Saves are being made, and unfortunately enough, there's that Teddy Siga breakaway and that fantastic pass by Z Buyam, who we've seen make those long stretch passes.
Yeah.
Perfect tape to tape, not necessarily perfect tape to tape because Stiga lost the handle, but his speed, his ability to recover and just put that move on, it was absolutely fantastic to see. But yeah, I thought it should have been over within the first 3, 4, 5 minutes, considering the high quality chances that USA had, considering how Ryan Leonard could have ended it, Gabe Perreault, James Hagens, Danny Nelson, you go down the list. They all had their dangerous opportunities. But yeah, fun overtime game and a fun way to end off the tournament with the golden goal.
For sure. And Rimpinen had, I don't know how many great saves he had in that. I mean, a couple of the chances, like Hagens, I think misfired on that one. It looked like a ridiculous save, but then on the replay, Hagens kind of misplay. I mean, he could have, if he elevated it, it's a goal. But I mean, Rimpinen was amazing, and of course, he won the best goalie of the tournament, obviously. Which I mean, he was throughout the tournament really good. Dayton, what do you think about the gold medal game?
Yeah, super exciting. I will admit that I was cheering against the States. As a diehard Canadian fan, it's always tough
Yeah.
to see the Americans win.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just, it's personal bias. It is what it is.
It's in our nature.
Because they were such a really, really strong team. They came into the tournament as medal favorites, and they were almost certainly going to walk away with a medal. And to see them, really succeed over the Canadians was, bittersweet, I guess. Lots of really, really good players, though. I loved what they did. Seeing Teddy Stiga, who was one of my favorite guys for the draft last year, and Cole Hudson, two guys that I thought should have been first round picks.
Yeah.
And you can go back and find my ranking, and I have them. I am not just blowing smoke here. No, I thought they were worth first round picks, and I think they're proving that in this World Juniors. They were clutch performers. They did exactly everything that they needed. I will say that Finland seems to be the USA's kryptonite a little bit. They managed to, whenever they meet, it seems to go Finland's way, or at least it's really close when the USA is blowing everyone else out. It's always the fun matchup. I think that's it's a newly developing rivalry over the last 5-7 years. That's been really fun to watch, and it was good to see it play out again. I just wish it went the other way.
Yeah, I mean, Finland always puts up a big fight, and it's funny how I always say don't count Finland out, yet I never pick them to win. But yeah, they ended up putting on a pretty good tournament after losing to Canada initially, and having, I mean, they beat the US in the round robin and the overtime. So I mean, they could have and did it again. But yeah, throughout the overtime, I think the US, like you said, Peter, had tons of chances to win it and controlled the play for most of the period. So it was just a matter of time before one was going to go. And of course, Stiga gets it and makes a really good, nice shot on Rimpinen too. So it looked like he was, I don't know, he was of course the best goalie in the tournament, and was ridiculous even in that the third period. I think the U.S. pretty much dominated that third period. The only reason it went to overtime was because of Rimpinen. Same thing with against Sweden. I mean, Sweden dominated almost the whole game towards the end of the game, and he was the reason they stayed in too. So lots of good performances from Finland too, even though they ended up getting the silver. So yeah, really, actually, it was an exciting gold medal game to watch too. So and then U.S. back-to-back gold medals for the first time in their history, which was actually surprising to me because I'm like, what? They've never won two in a row? Guess not. So they're ending up. I don't know. They could end up being a perennial power here in the next. They could win it next year too. I mean, they're going to have return a lot of guys. Maybe Hagens. Who knows? I mean, it'll depend on who he's getting drafted by if he does play right away, or if he wants to stay in college. I mean, that's also a possibility. He could stay in the NCAA, but we'll see. Still going to have a strong team next year, too. All right. Well, let's move in to and talk about the best players from each team. We're just going to pick. Each of us have our picks, and we could agree with each other. But I'll start with you, Peter, and we'll start with the U.S., the gold medalists. Who is your MVP, best player on the team. There's a lot to choose from because there was a lot of great performances throughout the tournament for the Americans.
Yeah, I think this is the one case where you don't have one wrong answer.
True.
But I am going to pick Ryan Leonard. I'm going to pick the MVP. I'm going to go the easy route, but it's easy to see why he won MVP. You know, he's got the leadership qualities, he's got the quick transitional play, he's got the speed, the intensity. Maybe was kind of, getting under the ref's skin where he was trying to draw calls and the refs were saying, nah, keep going. I think maybe people were thrown off about that. He was getting some boosts as well. Um, but yeah, you gotta love the intensity that he brings. You gotta love the leadership qualities, and it reminded me that of Rucker McGrory the previous year,
Mm.
where that top line alone was very, very fantastic. I mean, Leonard had 10 points. Um, Burrow had 10 points. Unfortunately, James Hagens only had 9 points, so he's going to get bumped down from one. No, I'm just joking. Because of the fact that he didn't get that one extra point. But, they combined for close to 30 points alone in that tournament, which is
Yeah.
impressive. But, the pace, the speed, the energy, the physicality, he just brought the whole entire package for Team USA, and they followed his example and leadership. So he's my MVP for Team USA.
Yeah, he was impressive. I think he's in the NHL pretty soon. He looks pretty NHL ready, I think. And the Washington Capitals are sure got a good guy there coming up soon. All right, Dayton, who do you have? Is it Ryan Leonard, or are you going to pick someone else?
I did pick someone else, not because I think Ryan Leonard wasn't the best player of the tournament. The IHF said that he was. He's the MVP. I was really impressed with James Hagens, though.
Yeah.
To me, I think
Mhm.
he is, if not the best player, he was a reason that Ryan Leonard could be the best player. He was the kind of the anchor of that top line, really performing well as a center up there. He moved the puck really well. He was always kind of where you needed him to be. Looks really, really smart, really, really intelligent. Can, compete with everyone else who is, a year or 2 years older than him. Yeah, I think he is potentially underrated as, somebody coming in as a potential first overall pick. Yeah, really, really skilled. I think he's my top guy for the USA.
That whole line, I mean, that Boston College line, it's pretty crazy to be able to put a line like that that's already has chemistry from the NCAA, just throw them into a tournament. And that's why they dominate. I mean, Gabe Perreault wasn't amazing too. That whole line was great. You could probably pick each one of them as the MVP for US. And then Cole Hudson too, coming in Boston University. So, I mean, all the Boston connections there. Yeah, so it's you could probably don't go wrong by picking any of those guys for the U.S. All right, let's move to Finland, the silver medalists, and again, there's quite a few guys to choose from here too, because they had quite a few guys that really impressed, including the goalie, which we've mentioned a couple times here. Dayton, who is their MVP?
Ooh, Petteri Rimpinen is, I think, the top player, the reason why they got in. I'm gonna pick Email. Pienaniemi. That's a tongue twister. Um, I thought he was kind of like James Hagens in that he always was where Finland needed him to be. He was
Mm.
a really, really impressive player. And I haven't really paid too much attention. Oh, oops, sorry. Got too many things going on here. Um, he was really strong on defense for the Finns. He led the both teams in ice time on the Canada-Finland Boxing Day match. He moved the puck really well. He helped control the blue line. He showed some physicality. He drew some penalties, took some penalties too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was really, really impressed with what he could do. And I think to me that is, the Finnish player, the pinnacle of the Finns who are kind of in your face. They get to it. They're fast, and they get it done.
Yeah. I mean, one of the really I'm always impressed by the Finns is their work ethic and their forecheck because they're always on you. I mean, it's like you try to move the puck, they're right there. And I think that's what kind of maybe why the Americans, I mean, they like to use their speed and the Finns just get on you. You've got to move it really quick for, to get out of your zone. So Yeah, really impressed, I think, just by their team game every time I see them play. It doesn't matter what tournament, too. So they're really impressive in that. Peter, what about you for Finland?
You mentioned that they got a rivalry going on with Team USA, and I'm gonna pick one of the guys that was a thorn in their side the whole entire time, and that was Jesse Kiiskinen,
Yeah.
where he scored 6 goals throughout the tournament, but he scored a key goal that jump started, their kind of momentum swing in the round robin, which led to that New Year's Eve clash between Canada and USA for the top spot, where Finland won in overtime. And he scored again in that gold medal game. And he was all over the place in terms of getting quality chances, quality scoring opportunities. And the fact that he managed to score 6 times was really impressive, because you would expect, maybe you would have liked to see a little bit more offense out of, let's say, Kasa Helenius. You would have liked to see him shoot the puck a little bit more. Kasper Halttunen, we know how much of a heavy shot he has. He only had 1 goal. Emil Hemming only had 1 goal. But Kiiskinen led the way for offensively in terms of production for Finland. So he's going to be my pick as in terms of their top player, because he was very important, and he rose to the occasion in key games when Finland needed one of their best players to be one of them, and he was definitely that.
He scored in 6 straight games too, right? So it's he didn't have any multi-goal games, but he was good for a goal a game, which is pretty crazy. So Red Wings prospect. Yeah, so Red Wings got maybe a good one there. Not a Swedish guy, which is interesting. All right, let's move to the bronze medal game and talk about Czechia, which again, lots of guys to choose from here too. So Peter, who do you have for Czechia?
Yeah, I know, and it may be easy to say Mikhail Hrabal, Edward Shala, but Jakub Stancil really stood out in a big way, scoring 7 goals and leading the way offensively with 10 points for Czechia. I mean, he just finds the middle of the ice so effortlessly, and his size and his ability to push his way through. He's already 6'3", 198 pounds, so he's already got that NHL stature already, and he posed to be a problem for many teams in this tournament offensively, or in the offensive zone, and he was one of their game-breaking players for Czechia. So hard. I mean, again, kind of, there were a lot of like players on their top line that you could have probably picked as well, but also that WHL experience with the Kelowna Rockets. The ability to create havoc down low along the boards and then push his way to the middle was really effective for Czechia. So he's going to be my top player for them.
Yeah, I'd pick him too. I mean, Edward Shala was really good too, and like you said, a Robble. Goaltending was not a problem for Czechia throughout the tournament too. So yeah, lots of guys. So yeah, good choice there. Dayton, who do you have for Czechia?
I'm going to go with Shala. Scoring that game winner. He sort of capped off the perfect tournament for him. He
Yeah.
was, I think, Czechia's kind of play driver. He was the person who was, making things happen when he was on the ice. And Stancil, I keep forgetting how to pronounce his name. Um, he, I think benefited a ton from having Shala on the team.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Shala. I would even throw in someone else, Wojtek Port. I thought he was a really solid defenseman,
Yeah.
not the best player of the team, but
Yeah.
I thought he really stood out. Harabel, I was impressed with, but I was hoping to be more impressed with, if that makes sense. Both he and Trey Augustine for the States, I thought,
Yeah.
weren't as dominant as I wanted them to be.
Yeah.
They looked just really good instead of super good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think while we were kind of talking about the best goalie predictions, and we didn't mention Rimpinen, and we got a comment in on the YouTube channel about that, and we'll eat our words here because he was the best goaltender throughout the tournament. Very, very impressed with how he played, a lot, especially towards the end of it, keeping Finland in games for sure. All right, Sweden. This is, I mean, it's so bad. I got so many wins in the group stage, and then they get two losses right at the end. But they had a lot of impressive performances from guys too. So, uh, Dayton, who do you have? I mean, there's an obvious one for sure, who played really well throughout. But who do you have as their best player?
It's going to be an obvious one. Axel
Yeah,
Sandin Pellikka was
yeah,
Sweden's best player. The way he is able to control the game, moving the puck, the way he is able to come up the ice and just really, set up a system wherever he is. I loved his puck moving ability. He was a dangerous offensive threat. I think he led Sweden in goals as well. Yeah, he was fantastic. I think, well, I was really impressed with all of Sweden's defense. They had a really strong blue line, but that was commanded by Axel Sandin
yeah.
Pellikka. He was, to me, the easy choice for best defenseman. Really, really good.
Yeah, back to back for him too. Last World Juniors, he won it
Yeah, that
as
doesn't happen
well.
very
So.
often, does it?
Yeah.
No, it was they said it. I can't remember who the guy was. It was a long time ago when last time a guy got it 2 years in a row. So yeah, and Red Wings have got a great a great guy coming up for sure. All right, Peter, who do you have? Sandy Pellica. I mean, there were a lot. Quite. I mean, there were other guys as well.
Yeah, this is the one that we've agreed on to this point. Axel Sandin Pellikka, he was the
Yeah.
difference maker on the back end for Sweden. I am a little bit disappointed in Otto Stenberg because I kind of picked
Mm,
him as one of those, maybe top forwards, not the top forward, but like, when you're doing an all-star team, maybe I would have liked to see him. I picked him because I thought maybe he would be the offensive driver, has a lot more skill than some of the other players that he was playing with. Didn't quite see that. Had 8 points in 7 games, which was really good, but kind of like Augustine and Hrabel, they were good, but I wanted to see pretty good. Like I want to see that one step above, kind of like what Dayton said previously with Stenberg. But yeah, Sandy Pellico was dynamic, just an absolute force on the back end and transition in the offensive zone, just all over the place in a good way. Um, yeah, I mean, really nothing else to say. Like, there's a big reason why he was top defender of this tournament, and it's basically that. So, yeah, top player for Sweden for me. But honorable mention to Felix Ungersorum, really,
yeah.
really underrated, really strong playmaker with 9 assists in the tournament. Of course, Carolina Hurricanes prospect, so they got a good one there. But yeah, honorable mention to him.
By the way, I did find out who is the last guy to win back-to-back uh, best defenseman at the World Juniors.
All right.
You guys want to take a shot at it? He's from the USSR.
Ooh.
Yeah,
I, I want to say Fetisov. Is it?
you would be correct.
All right,
Yeah.
because I was trying to remember what they said, and it
Yep,
was.
Slava Fetisov
Yeah.
in 77 and 78 is the last
Oof.
time it happened. He also won the World Championship Best Defenseman in 78. So,
Man,
yeah, he was
impressive.
really good.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it was. I just didn't want to say it and be wrong. So
I got you.
there you go. All right, let's go out of the medals and we'll quickly go through these other teams and we'll start with Canada. Unfortunately, get kicked in the quarterfinal again. They did have some good performances, not a lot of great performances, unfortunately. But Peter, who do you have as their best player?
This close to giving it to the 17-year-old and Gavin McKenna because just some bad puck luck, bad bounces, a lot of posts, but they wouldn't have gotten to this point without Carter George.
Yeah,
I mean, for the first time in a long time, Canada has a stable goaltender, and there should have been no question marks in net. The offense dries up, and we're going to get to that later on because it's another topic, where he was the reason why they got to that point. He was the reason why they were fighting in tough games when they probably should have been blowing out their opponents, like Latvia, like Germany. But parity's good. I love parity. I love to see this competition right now. But I mean, 4 games played. Despite that, 2 wins, 2 losses, he had the second best save percentage, 936, and I believe the third best goals against average. Um, so I really thought that he stood tall. He gave Canada a fighting chance in every single time, and they weren't great in front of him. He was standing tall on his head. And unfortunately, the tournament ended early for him, but I think he has a good opportunity next year to be that backstop once again, which is great for Canada because if he moved on, I guess you had, Ravensburg and Ivan Kovic to, move up. But I think it's going to be Carter George's net next year again and replicate the success that he had this year.
Yeah, he was impressive. No fault against him for Canada getting kicked in the quarterfinal. So lots of things we can unpack with that. We'll do a quick thing at the end here about Canada. But Dayton, what about you for Canada? Who was their best player?
Yeah, I think all the guys that you mentioned were really strong. Carter George uh, was a big reason why Canada wasn't, I think, in the relegation round. Um, they just kind of fell apart, and I blame none of the players, and we'll get to that later. Kevin McKenna was really strong for his first tournament. Matthew Schaefer looked really good until that injury.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My MVP is Tanner Mollendijk. He
Mhm.
8 minutes. He
Mhm.
commanded a blue line that didn't have a lot of support. He looked consistent for most nights. I was hoping to see more from guys like Sam Dickinson. I
Yeah.
didn't see enough. Tanner Mollendijk was at least out there and he was commanding the play and trying to do everything he could to get Canada into a place to win. And just unfortunately, a team is not made by one person.
Mhm. It's the thing. Yeah, it's not just the roster. You got coaching staff too, which, like I say, we'll talk about later. Um, Peter, let's go to Slovakia. And I mean, there's probably an obvious one here too. But who do you have as the best player for Slovakia?
Yeah, slow start for Dalibor Dvorsky, but he did pick it up towards the end. But kind of like Tanner Molenbeek for Team Canada, Maxim Sturbach for Slovakia, really
Yeah,
impressive with maybe defense wasn't their strong suit on the back end, but he was absolutely fantastic. Great mobility, great defensive presence, and chipped in offensively with 6 points in that span in 5 games. So just above a point per game, which is really impressive to see. Um, with the fact that there was also Uri Parasek as well. I believe I said that correctly.
yeah,
My
Rasek, yeah,
screens. Okay,
I
yeah. So
believe
there we
so.
go.
Yeah,
Uh, Pekarsek. There we go.
yeah,
Pekarsek. But yeah, the two-way game that Sturbeck had kind of reminiscent of that of Molendijk. The skating was all over the place. Again, was a big difference maker on the back end for Slovakia. Really wanted to say Dvorsky, but it was hard not to, undermine what Sturbeck did for Slovakia on the back end.
for sure. I'm especially when they've lost so many great defensemen in the last few years off that blue line, especially Nemeth. So that was a big one. Losing him. I mean, he was always one of their best defensemen in the World Juniors too. All right, Dane, you have someone else for Slovakia other than the guys we've mentioned here.
No, Dalibor Dvorsky was my top pick. I mean, it's his fourth World Juniors. He looked fantastic. He
Yeah.
led the team in points, led the team in goals. Pekarsek was really good. I liked watching him. Sturbach was great. There was a few others that stood out. The glimpses I got from Radivojevic was pretty good. I thought Urban looked
Mm.
solid, but when you face, as many shots as kind of those lower teams do,
Yeah.
you're not gonna have the greatest save percentage. But no, I think Dalibor Dvorsky was Slovakia's kind of driving force, and maybe didn't start out as good as he could have, but he finished as good as he did, which
Yeah.
was that's I mean, it's all about how you finish, right?
For sure. The St. Louis Blues, my gosh, 9 prospects at this
Yeah.
World Juniors. And I don't know, a lot of them were really good. So we've already mentioned what Stancil. We've mentioned, well, you already mentioned Dvorsky there. I mean, they had quite a few other guys too. So lots of representation for the Blues. All right, Peter, Switzerland. We're getting to the lower teams here. Of course, Switzerland did make it to the quarterfinal, got kicked by the United States quite easily, as we kind of anticipated. But who were you impressed by throughout the tournament?
A little bit tough because Swiss were going to be one of those teams where they would just get in, and the talent ahead of them is a little bit better. But yeah, really tough. But I'm probably going to pick an overager for this year's class, and Ludwig Janssen. Um, I thought he really stood out in terms of, being that offensive driver, being a little bit more involved with the play. Um, Probably is helping his case a little bit more this time in terms of making his way through the draft once again. So I'm curious to see how he plays out, but I thought he really stood out and made his case to get selected this time around as opposed to last time. So he's going to be my pick.
Dane, what about you for Switzerland?
I'm going to go with their point leader, Leo Brelard. I thought he was one of the, only guys who was able to put the puck in the net. And that's not a slight against Switzerland. I thought they did really well, and they're going to do really well next year, I think, at least for that middle of the pack group. It's such a young team, and Brelard came out and led it as a veteran. And I thought that was, a good showing from him. It was a solid tournament from him, I thought.
For sure. I mean, Switzerland, of course, overmatched most of the time, but I mean, they always seem to hold their own throughout these things. So, yeah, I mean, full marks for them to get to the quarterfinal too. So, all right, Peter, Latvia. There's an obvious one for this one. I mean, it's probably Eric Smateko. I mean, he was amazing. I mean, their goaltender was really good too. So, who do you have?
Yeah, a goal per game, that basically game winner against Canada in the shootout is probably going to be on their currency in the first foreseeable future because I mean that's huge. That's what you want to see. That's a big moment for him and for his country where they may not have as many prospects drafted or listed or playing in this tournament, but they are a hockey nation. They're showing it in the senior level, and it's carrying or making its way down to the junior level where you're seeing all these type of performances where one player stands out and it's giving this country a lot of momentum right now, where maybe they'll still be middle of the pack, who knows, but you got to give them credit. And Eric Smateko was a big reason for that. Again, 5 goals in 5 games, very impressive, a goal per game player. But I really did like Bruno Osmanis as well, draft eligible player this season for the 2025 drafts. Looked pretty decent, liked his upside, but Eric Smateko just takes the cake.
Yeah, he was impressive throughout. And I believe he scored even in the quarterfinal too. I know I saw his name. He was dominant. He was around most of the tournament, getting points and goals. Dane, do you have someone else, or is it Mateko for Latvia?
Mateko was great. I think Leinards Feldbergs
Yeah,
was my guy.
goalie was
I,
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think two guys really led Latvia, and give them credit. They had a strong team. They played well together. They were a cohesive unit. And that was really evident against their games like against Sweden and against Canada. They managed to almost fend off, some of the best players and beat the Canadians, right? And that's, props to them that they earned that win.
Mhm.
Feldbergs really stood on his head when he needed to, though. What did he face? Almost 60 shots against the
Yeah.
Canadians.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of work. You have to stay focused in those moments, and he did.
Yeah.
That's a great goalie. He is my top pick for Latvia.
Yeah, there were two guys that really led the way for that team, and they played a really good team game too. I mean, that of course there's more guys than just two, but yeah, they were definitely the leaders for sure. All right, Germany, who stay in this tournament because they did win the relegation game. Um, Peter, who do you have as their MVP?
Julius Sumpf, I mean, the big offensive producer, he kind of an easy one too, because he had 7 points in 5 games. He was their play driver up front. Big reason why they staved off elimination as well in this tournament because of his offensive contributions. But again, going to 2025 draft as well, David Lewandowski, I really like in his power forward game. Again, he scored a fantastic goal against Team USA where they were kind of biting their nails a little bit themselves. And only 2 goals in that tournament, but I really like the upside that he brings. But Julius Sumpf, really big offensive difference maker for Germany, so he's going to be my top pick.
And of course, Germany stayed against Canada for quite a while, 1-0 before Canada actually got a couple. Was it just a finally got a second goal? But yeah, Germany, I think they acquitted themselves well, and of course deserve to stay in this tournament. Dayton, what do you have? Is it Lewandowski as your
Of course, it's Lewandowski. You see the jerseys behind me here? Oh, sorry, move my head here. Yeah, I thought, and this isn't just a homer pick. I thought looked really, really strong. He demonstrated some really good strength. He would go into the corners, he would fight for the puck, and he scored Germany's first goal of the tournament, if I recall correctly. He was putting himself in a place to succeed and to help Germany do what they could do. And I've been watching him do that in Saskatoon. He did some very, very similar plays in the World Juniors that he did out here. And actually, I had to laugh because he pulled a move in, I think, that first game. I can't remember who they were playing against, where he stops just ahead of the corner, has the guy bounce off of him, and then he goes for the puck. He's done that in Saskatoon before. He got a penalty internationally. And I think that was Germany's first penalty as well. It's like, he's a power forward. He's going to do power forward things, and it's going to serve him very well. And I thought he looked really strong. He only got 2 goals, but they were clutch 2 goals. Those were really important things that he's scored. I was also impressed with Carlos Handel. I thought he looked pretty good. Young, but can be a solid puck-moving defenseman. I thought he had some real potential.
Yeah, it's got a couple impressive guys. I mean, Lewandowski, I think he didn't do. I mean, of course, I don't know where he's going to get drafted, but definitely showed scouts some stuff at the World Juniors, and we'll see if that boosts his ranking a bit. All right, Kazakhstan, who unfortunately was relegated and won't be in next year's World Juniors. That will be Denmark, re-entering the World Juniors, and they're an interesting team. They sometimes surprise teams whenever they're in here. So, while Kazakhstan though they were in it right till the end. They actually put up a bit of a fight against Germany in the relegation game too. So, Peter, who were you impressed by? They still put up a fight in this tournament.
Yeah, and even came close to beating Slovakia as well, only losing 5-4. So yeah, they pushed some teams or the teams that you thought that would beat Kazakhstan, they pushed themselves. So yeah, always great to see, but tough when you're the relegated team because not a whole lot was going for you. But Artur Gross led the way with 4 points in 5 games. Kirill Lyapunov, 3 goals as well for Kazakhstan as well. Yeah, it is really tough when you get or not a whole lot's going for you. You had some upside or you had some, close chance or close games to try and win it yourself. Hard to pick one, but those two really stood out and led the charge for Kazakhstan for me.
Yeah, I mean, they were putting up points, which they weren't getting shut out in games. They were scoring goals. So, they weren't getting rolled over. I mean, they did get rolled over, but they weren't
in
like
one game. Yeah,
they got one game, got destroyed. But that was, of course, against the US, I believe. So that was, expected. The Czechia, I think, put up a lot of goals.
It was that 14-2 game.
Yeah, it was Czechia that got that 14 spot on them. So. And they were one of the top scoring teams in the tournament. Although that was probably helped by those 14 goals of the 20 or so that they scored. All right, Dayton, who do you have? I know there's a Senators prospect part of that team too.
There is, yeah. That'd be Vladimir Nikitin, the goalie. He, I think, did as well as he could have. To me, Kazakhstan was Latvia, but just less skilled. They had that man-to-man physical defense, but it was a little bit more porous. They had a strong goalie who just couldn't quite handle that barrage of shots that the bottom team is always going to face. So, yeah, I thought there was some, forwards that Peter mentioned were pretty good. Got some key goals. But to me, Nikitin was, the guy who kept them in as long as he possibly could have.
Yeah, it's always tough being a goalie when you're going against these ridiculously more skilled teams that you just can't match, unfortunately. Yeah, so they won't be in the World Juniors next year. That will be Denmark. So we'll look forward to that and see how they do. All right, let's do a quick fire. And of course, we got to return to Team Canada because, of course, we're always invested as all of us cover Canadian teams. We are all based in Canada too. So Peter, what went wrong? I mean, they go out in the quarterfinal, and this is a lot. I mean, this is a very loaded question for a quick fire. So, what needs to change for next year? I mean, there's just so much to talk about, but what does Canada need to do to return basically to the dominance that they were of being at least in the medal rounds? I mean, that's what you want to see, competing for a medal.
I am going to be short and to the point as best as possible with a long list of things that needed to change or needs to change. One, it starts off with management. Pick the best players. I mean,
Yeah.
you got a lot of role players. There were a lot of still some question marks too with Riley Heidt being left off, Andrew Crystal, Michael Misa, Zane Parekh. Again, hindsight is 2020. You don't know if you would get the same results with those players, but you take the best players regardless of who's on the list. I mean, if they had a good camp, they're strong. Take them. That's all that matters. And I'm pretty sure they could have used some of the offense that Crystal, Height, and Miso and even St. Parekh would have brought. But again, hindsight's 2020. Two, I just want some competence from the management because it seemed like a lot of people were deflecting the blame, not taking ownership, except for one person in Scott Salmon. I really like the fact that he said, you want somebody to blame me because he was the one that did a lot of the not scouting, but putting everything together. I really liked his comments. Everybody else was just trying to find excuses, and that's disappointing. Get a new head coach because I don't think Dave Cameron did a whole lot. I'm still baffled that with offense and you're trying to get offense, you're scratching Carson Rakoff, one of the top OHL scorers. The past few years, you're not putting him with Porter Martone, who he has good chemistry with. You didn't move Gavin McKenna up into the top line until later in the tournament, which is a big mistake. I think that's just bad coaching on his part. You need a new voice. My vote is for either Chris Lazary or Gardner McDougall because McDougall knows a lot of these players from that U18 championship. And yeah, I think those are my top three. You could say discipline too. That killed them throughout the whole entire tournament, but this is more so on management and the staff itself than it is on the players because the players played their hearts out. They played their best. Bad result, and it seems like a lot of them are still getting the online hate from no name accounts, you name it. They're teenagers. They played their best. They want to be at their best. It's just unfortunate that that management basically failed them. So that's basically my talking or TED talk as quick as possible, point bullet notes, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, it's unfortunate.
It's true. There's a lot to go on. And I mean, there's just so much. Talking about the play, I think the biggest thing was the management and the picking of the players. You go with your best, and they just left so much talent behind. Not saying that the talent that was on there wasn't good, but they left a lot more, I think, difference makers away, and that could have made a big difference, especially on the power play. And the power play was been really different. If you're bringing in Zane Parekh, Carter Yakimchuk, I mean, these guys, they thrive in those situations. I mean, and they could have made a difference, but like I say, hindsight 2020, right?
Oh,
right.
One more point too. Totally skipping practices for no good reason. I mean, if you're using fatigue as a factor, this is a tournament. Everyone wants to win. You're not putting your best foot forward. You're not hitting the ice like Team USA, like Czechia, like Sweden, like every other team in this tournament. I find that hard to believe that this team was exhausted and tired, and they had very little travel. So, yeah.
You guys, they're young. I mean,
they're full of energy. I don't think they're tired.
No. Dayton, I know you mentioned that in the interview that on a few days ago too. So,
Yeah.
what do you think about Team Canada? I mean, it's just, yeah. I mean, what do you think about what needs to change for next year?
I think this 100% comes down onto coaching. I think I saw a coach who gave up on his team.
Yeah.
After about a period in the Latvia game, he stopped caring. He didn't
Yeah,
care what these kids did. He canceled the practice after they lost. He canceled the practice after the United States loss. He canceled the practice after or before the Czechia game. That's somebody who didn't care. He didn't
yeah,
do his job. And these are kids, right? They have tons of energy. I was told a story over over the holidays of my 6 or 7, yeah, I think he's 17 now, 17-year-old nephew who went and played beer league with my brother-in-law, and he played the whole 60 minutes. Would not get off the ice. Like he skated circles around these old guys because he has boundless energy
yeah,
because he's 16 or 17
yeah,
years old. Like they want to play
yeah,
so badly. And the coach didn't let him. The coach didn't make any changes. The coach didn't adjust when the team needed to adjust. He didn't give chances for players to succeed. Um, Thinking about how he coached that game makes me so mad.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm coming at it from a teaching point of view, right? I'm
yeah,
a teacher. I want like yes, it is on the kids for to do the thing, right? But you can't say, "Oh, well, they didn't perform, that's their fault." Like
yeah,
you didn't give them a chance to perform. You
yeah,
didn't give
They
them a
didn't get a
chance to
chance to
succeed.
learn.
yeah,
Exactly. You're the coach. You have to bring them together to give them chances to
yeah.
succeed. And he did not do that. He gave up on the team. And I don't want to see him anywhere near Hockey Canada ever again.
Yep.
That was abysmal. I, yeah, I don't know if I can say too much more on a podcast here.
We would need probably a censor button, but
We would,
Yeah.
yes. It frustrates me beyond no end. And the only other thing I'll add is I would make a counterpoint about the selection. I think the selection was fine. Yes, Carter Yakimchuk and Zane Perek would have been fun additions. Beckett Seneca would have been a great
Yeah.
addition.
another
Who are
one.
you taking
Yeah.
out? You got to take
Yeah.
somebody out.
Yeah.
Are you taking out
True.
Sam Dickinson? He didn't play very well, sure, but are you doing that before the tournament? Not a chance. Are you
Mm.
taking out Tanner Mollendijk? He was,
No.
very, very solid. You're taking out Matthew Schaefer, again, one of their best defensemen. You're not making a lot of those changes. Putting Mollendijk with Andrew Gibson, that was a really good combo. They worked
Mhm.
really well. Caden Price was one of the team's best defensemen. When, push came to shove, he was very solid. You got to take somebody out to put those guys in.
Mhm.
And even the guys I was critical of, and you can go back in these podcasts, like Tanner Howe, Luca Pinelli, I didn't think they maybe deserved a spot on the team. Those were two of my favorite players
Mhm.
watching against
Mhm.
Czechia. They did fantastically, probably better than anyone else, I think. They were so good because they got down to like just brass tacks and they worked hard. They got into the corners, they got that puck, and they created scoring chances. And some of the other guys didn't. Like you had really, really hard workers. So one thing I want to see next year is just get a team to work together.
Mm.
Fair.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to me, that comes down to coaching. Um, because you only have a short amount of time, you got to bring everybody together really, really quickly. But you need really hard workers. And sure, maybe they had too many playmakers. Maybe they didn't have enough goal scorers. But getting all these really, really talented players to work together will create those opportunities to win.
Yeah.
Mhm.
100%. And that's the thing. I mean, I was saying, I was talking to my dad about it too, and this is such a short tournament. You got to get these guys together really quick. They're not their head coach in their league play. I mean, obviously Dave Cameron is a couple guys head coach, but it's you need to get a system really quickly together, and it's yeah, you guys get everyone playing together really quick. And I think one of the coaches in the past who really good at that was Brent Sutter.
Yeah.
Probably one of the top Hockey Canada. I mean, for Team Canada. And I mean, yes, he had tons of talent to work with in his the 5 year. I don't know
Dave
how many
Cameron.
gold medals he won, but yeah, but Dave Cameron did too. So you need to just get these guys together really quick, and he just failed to do it. So very long-winded, quick fire, but that needs to be. We needed to talk
We
about it.
we aired our grievances. It was a very, very light Festivus for us
Yeah,
with
Yeah.
that.
And I will add with Sutter, like that's such a Sutter way to coach though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like you
yeah.
don't get away with anything.
No.
You work hard or
There's
you don't
accountability with
play.
him.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. And that's how every Sutter coaches. And that's why they don't have a long tenure in a lot of NHL teams is because they have such high
Standards.
um I forgot the word. The word's not coming to me. High expectations is not quite what I was
Standards,
talking about.
expectations. Yeah.
Standards.
Standards,
Yeah.
yeah. They have such high standards that you have to, work really hard to get that. A short tournament, I think that works really well. 4 years with an NHL team, you get tired of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can get away with, you know, replacing guys like that in an NHL situation with a junior tournament. I think it works really, really well. It's very effective. Yeah, bring in a more consistent coach. A lot of other teams do it. It seems to work for them.
Yeah. So we'll see. I will see what happens with Team Canada next year. But unfortunately, we have to wait a year for that to happen. All right, let's move to now these last two are going to be quick fire. So, Peter, James Hagens. Now, I mean, Matthew Schaefer unfortunately got hurt, so he couldn't build his, build his ranking. Unfortunately, Porter Martone again didn't play a lot. Didn't get a big chance to. So James Hagens had the biggest chance to further this, but did he pull away from the pack as the first overall pick?
For the time being, yes. And if Matthew Schaefer didn't suffer that injury, I still think it would still be a very, very close margin between the two. I still think the gap is closer than people may seem because of Hagens' performance, but we know how well when things get or when Matthew Schaefer faces adversity, he bounces back. Rough season last year. He's dealt with a lot of emotional impact off the ice with two deaths, billet mother and his own mother. Very emotional. Still played hard throughout the season. Camped at a Linker Gretzky Cup to a gold medal. Diagnosed with mono, missed a good chunk of the start of the season, comes back on a tear. Looked great in that USA Canada challenge. And then suffers a shoulder injury here. I think he'll bounce back, and I still think that despite the injury, it's still closer than what it may seem, despite Hagens' big performance, because we know what Matthew Schaefer is capable of doing.
Yeah.
Big offensive contributor, great agility, great mobility on the back end. I still think Hagens is number one for now, but even despite the injury with Schaefer, I still think it's a close battle.
Yeah, I mean, Schaefer would be out, what, 3 months? Is the diagnosis on that. So, I mean, I don't think
Teams will still take a flyer in that
Oh,
regardless.
definitely. 100%. But yeah, it's unfortunate that you get such a long-term injury in a tournament too. I mean, I hate it when it happens in a tournament that's not part of your regular season. So, yeah, but I think he's probably still going to be in that conversation. Dayton, do you think Hagens has kind of pulled away from what he's done here?
Yeah, I think so. He finished second on USA in scoring. I thought he looked great on that top line. Yeah, he right now he is the first overall pick.
Yeah, he I mean, I didn't think, well, I didn't think he was going to be that dominant, but the guys he's playing with, I mean, that's pretty good. It's probably a good chance he will. And of course, two guys he has chemistry with already, which is big too. All right, last question. And I'll start with you, Peter. You're going to put out your next set of rankings pretty soon here. Lots of draft eligible players who are in this tournament. Who kind of rose? Who do you see rising or falling? I mean, it's tough to say falling because this is such a short tournament. It probably shouldn't. But who kind of impressed you or kind of disappointed throughout the tournament that played here?
Tough with disappointment because of the fact that, again, it is a short tournament. Do you have a larger sample with the junior season than it is with this? You shouldn't put too much stock into it. Really would have liked to see a little bit more out of Logan Hensler from Team USA. Again, he was probably a little bit more further down the depth chart, didn't get a lot of those opportunities, so I'm not going to hold it against him. But when he was on the ice, maybe just see a little bit more dynamicism with that two-way play that he started to generate with NCAA.
Mm.
Again, not a big drop overall. If it is, it's probably because other players really impressed me. And one of those players that did impress me was Victor Eklund.
Mm.
I think he's going to really shoot up. He's shooting up on my ranking. A little bit of a mini spoiler alert. Not going to say where, but he did shoot up. Um, had him in like that 20 to 25 range or 20 to 30 range. Sorry. Previously entering the season, he really shot up. This tournament, he looked very, very fantastic. Shows a bit of tenacity at times too. He's very, very skilled, very deceptive with his playmaking, can get to the middle of the ice very well. Aside from guys like Stenberg, Unger Sorum, I really came away impressed with him. So yeah, Hensler, not so much as a total drop off or like decrease or anything because of the tournament, but I really came away impressed with Victor Eklund.
I like Declan's game too. He was noticeable, which is great for a draft eligible in a group of of older guys, and he's probably gonna be a first round pick. So I mean, he definitely impressed. Dayton, what about you? Anyone that you kind of see that could maybe increase their draft stock as a result of the tournament here?
Yeah, I think a few guys did. Um, like like you mentioned, Eklund looked really good with Sweden. He was one of their, better playmakers, play drivers. I thought he worked really hard. He's a very, very solid tournament. I thought Lewandowski improved his draft stock. Yeah, very, very solid player, and it was great to see him on the world stage continuing to do that. Um, I don't know if he's a first round pick, but definitely a mid rounder, second.
Mhm.
I wouldn't be surprised if he was right in there. And then, overager Petteri Rimponen, the
Yeah.
top goalie of the tournament. He really proved that he is a star goalie, and definitely won't get passed over this year.
Where do you think he is right now in
That's a good question. Um, it's always weird with older guys coming into the draft. Um, I would say third or fourth round. Just, goalies are weird.
yeah.
Overagers are weird. To me, that is like the perfect range to start looking at some of those options. Um, yeah, I think I would take Lewandowski first, then I would look at Rimpinen.
Mhm.
One more honorable mention for me was Topias Heinonen, and I gave him a shout out in my draft eligible prospects because he was an overager as well. And he looked very solid with his playmaking ability and his work ethic. I thought it was very solid for him for Finland as well.
Wasn't Adam Guyan an overager?
Mhm.
And he had a really solid World Juniors, I think 2 years, and then ended up being a second round pick.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
It's possible.
possible. I don't
Mhm.
know where Rempinen will go, but yeah, he definitely helped his cause in this tournament for sure. We'll see. We'll keep an eye on him and keep an eye out for a draft profile on him in the future too, guys. So I don't think we did one last year. Maybe we did. I don't know. But yeah, well, we'll look at that. But thanks, Dayton. Thanks, Peter, for coming on, talking World Juniors and wrapping up that tournament. And we'll continue and talking about the draft next, and we'll continue on that. Peter will probably go over your rankings once those are released, and we'll see what changes happened from your last ones, and continue that. But until our next episode, make sure checking out everything at thehockeywriters.com. We got great features coming out after the World Juniors, so the coverage hasn't ended. We're going to be doing a couple wrap-up pieces coming out, so make sure checking all that out. And then all of our prospect coverage as well through the Substack and through the website. But make sure checking that out. But until our next episode, we will see you next time.